Hey, welcome to Thru Port Collective. And we've been out for a couple of weeks, but it's great to be back. And we have one of our buddies, Brian Oliva from Getsemani Music, joining us. And first, because we never really do this that often, like if you got a moment, if you like our show, do the stuff that you're supposed to do or that is good to do or that is nice to us and, hit the like and all that. So, hey, let's get started. Guys, how the heck are you? Tim, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Just it's been pretty busy. Lots going on. Trying lots of stuff, and I had a live gig that I played this past Saturday night, and that pretty much required especially the last week. It's all I did. I canceled couple other things I had, and just so I could focus on it. It was requiring all my attention, just because I have a new rig to work with, and I still wasn't finished writing music, so I was still writing parts of it Saturday morning.
Wow.
Down to the wire there, huh?
But yeah, everything's cool, and it's the holidays, so enjoying that insanity, I guess, is what you would say. But it's a cool time of year, but it does bring a lot of craziness with it. So, but all's good here.
Awesome. Well, we'll take a little listen to that later. Marshall, how you doing? What you been up to?
What's up? Hey guys. Yeah, a little bit of a family emergency last week, so I had to take a trip to Denver unexpectedly. So I'm back. Things are kosher, so very thankful for that. Especially since it's the holidays and all that too. So it's a good time. But yeah, right before I left, I was able to get an update on my live rig that I've been working on, and that's coming together really nice.
Nice. And also, speaking of holidays, happy birthday.
Oh yeah, thanks. It's my birthday
Happy
today.
Birthday to you.
Thank you guys.
Well, that's great. Live rig, getting all that together. Excellent. And Brian, welcome. First time hanging out with us in this place. We've talked before, but how you been doing?
I've been doing great, and thanks. It's great to be here. But, I don't know, it's been a crazy month. Had to take a couple of weeks and go to El Paso, Texas on some personal business, so it kind of took up most of the month, and now I'm scrambling trying to get ready for Christmas.
Yeah.
Got a couple of grandsons coming down here before too long, and it's just going to be a madhouse pretty much through year end. So I'm trying to squeeze in any projects I could. Before I went to Texas, I did a whole series on the Cherry Audio stuff that I had picked up on Black Friday. So I was popping those out every 4 days, but they were really all made in advance. So I was just kind of simulating that I was still around, and that worked out good. And now I've got the new Model D that I'm trying to figure out, and of course, along with that, I ended up with retiring my key step and getting one of these things.
Oh, nice.
So,
I just got one of those myself.
So something else I still don't know how to use. So
I guess nor will he until after the holidays.
Yeah.
I still haven't had time to. I had like one session where I played with it and did the stuff you do, sequence and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then I just haven't had any time since then. So hope you'll get some time with that soon. Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. We don't really do interviews here, but like if there's somebody that doesn't know who you are or what you do, what you're about, like in a couple of minutes or something, what would that amount to?
Okay. Just 2 minutes, huh?
Okay. We're very strict. We aren't, but
well, mostly a hobbyist musician. I was in a garage band in the early 1970s when I was trying to figure out how to play organ, motivated by Inagata Vita by Iron Butterfly. And
nice.
Then I actually had to get a real job and kind of put all that in the background for about 45 or 47 years or something like that. But I always had a keyboard or some kind of a synth around over the years, and just to try to stay with it a little bit. Then I retired in 2017. As part of my victory tour, we went on a 7-week vacation that finished with the last stop in Asheville, North Carolina. And that's when the massive gas attacks started. And since 2017, I've gone a little bit berserk, you might say. So if you've seen the Moog Museum behind me, the Voyager I've had since about 2008, that was my first Moog. And then in 2017, I started with a Mother 32, followed by a DFAM, followed by a Subharmonicon and a grandmother and a matriarch, and a few other odds and ends. And then the Moog 1 came out, and most recently the Model D. So I guess you could say I'm Moog-centric. And now I do just playing for fun. I participate in the Hardware Jams group on Facebook quite frequently, where I get to make up something that I didn't expect to know about, with 3 days notice. So that keeps me working on new stuff. And then I pop out tutorials every now and then for the new stuff I get. Try to show features that were news to me and maybe news to somebody else. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, we've known each other for, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Yeah, probably with the Moog 1 introduction.
Yeah, I think like late 2018, because I think I got to know you and Marshall about the same time, and Tim was a little bit later. But with you two guys, it was through the Moog 1, and yeah, we've been hanging ever since. So it's been fun. You've been a name on our list and that we've wanted to have on, and we also got to do a fun project earlier this year where we did a collaboration, and really enjoyed working on that.
Yeah, that really came out good. I was really happy with that, and mostly I was really happy with you taking on the task to do the final mastering and editing and a little bit of rearranging, and couldn't have asked for anything better on that one.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it was a fun track to do, and maybe we'll play a little bit of it later. But yeah, that was great. So let's see here. What do we got? So basically today we don't really have a theme as we normally do, and begin because everything's been so hectic and the holidays and all that stuff. We just thought, let's just get together and just have a chat about synthesizers and just have fun and hang out. Next week, we're going to be doing a kind of a year in a review and talking about like what we've learned this year, and also some of our favorite picks as far as gear acquisitions, and then also what do we want to learn, or what do we want to work on in the coming year. So we'll be kind of tackling some of that stuff next week, but for this week it's really going to be chill. So I want to thank everybody in the chat. We've got like so many crazy talented people in there. I was just seeing like the list of names going by and the videos that I've watched over the last couple of weeks that people have been putting out. Some really great stuff. So if anybody's looking for good music, check out some of the names that are scrolling by, because there's some really, really fantastic music. Well, I guess to kind of kick us off, I mean, let's talk about the Arturia filter first, and then there's like probably the more important stuff, some of the stuff that you guys are all doing. But earlier this week? Man, I've lost track of time. Arturia had released this. I'm gonna pull it up here. Let's see, it should be that. The Arturia filter MS-20. Of course, this was kind of taken off of their collection 9, which included a really great model of the Korg MS-20. In fact, it just blows away the Korg collection, in my opinion, as far as its sound. And when I was checking out the MS-20 when the Korg collection came out earlier this year, I was like, this is maybe not one of the ones that I wanted in the collection. I was like, there were some other synthesizers that I would have preferred. I think at least up until that point, I was like, well, they haven't done a Polyvox or JX8P, or there's a number of them. And when I heard this MS-20 and played around with it, because I'd already had the Chord collection, that I was really impressed with how it sounded. And of course, now they've put this filter MS-20 out for free for a limited amount of time, and it'll eventually go into probably their effects collection. But it's got the distortion, the way that filter drives, because it's really crazy, and then it's got stereo filters, as well as some advanced features in it that allow you to manipulate the sound with sequencers and envelope filters. What do you guys think of the MS-20 and or this rendition of the filter? Who wants to jump in?
I gotta say, I have an actual MS-10, and I believe that the filter styles are pretty similar between the 10 and the 20. They both have that certain character that's very, very cool. And so I haven't gotten a chance to play with actually any software emulations of the 10 or the 20, but I love the character of the filter of my unit, of my hardware unit. So if this is anything like that, and then obviously with all the extra features and whatnot, I will be a fan of this. And you say it's free right now. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's free right now.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I like how they did the font almost like the Daft Punk logo from the Homework album. I think that's cool.
Oh, yeah. It's, yeah.
I didn't know about this. Unfortunately, I've been a little preoccupied this last week, but I'm going to check this out. I have a MS-20 Mini, which is pretty cool. So it'd be interesting to see how this stacks up.
Yeah, you could actually do a pretty good comparison there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I love them. I definitely am curious to. Well, I'll just get this. I mean, it's free, so no big deal. And, and just see what that's all about, But yeah, that's cool. What is it about the filter? I mean, it's not ladder style, right? I mean, what is it?
Well, I don't know. Just so I haven't had an MS-20. You guys have, but when I'm listening to the plugin and clips of the hardware online, it just has a really unique resonance, and the way that it distorts, it's a pretty dirty filter, and there's some really unusual textured sounds that you can get out of it. And one of the things that I had thought before, because I hadn't heard very many clips, it just wasn't on my radar. I was like, well, I what few clips I had heard before weren't really that interesting to me. And when I played around with the full plug-in synth, I was really impressed. I was like, this is kind of crazy sounding. It's ugly, but ugly in a good way. And then when you start with that kind of timbre that it has, that texture, and you're putting it into other stuff, reverb and things like that, it can become quite interesting. It really pops out. I mean, I would say kind of the closest thing that I would liken to, not necessarily in its timbre, but in its somewhat in its purpose, I guess, or how it stands out, is like the TB303, where it just has that certain unique resonance that just pops. It just cuts through a mix.
And it has that high pass filter option as well, which was, I think, like on the Mini Moogs, they it's just a regular ladder filter, but it didn't have a high pass option, so this was kind of a neat thing too. You can get a little bit more some different kind of sounds using that, I think, as well.
Yeah, indeed, to get some bandpass sounds.
Because I think you can use them at the same time, if I remember right. It's been a while.
Well,
since
there you go. Yeah,
mine.
Yeah. Then you can do some notching and whatnot.
Brian, what do you think? Is this? Have you had any experience with the MS-20? In fact, I know you did some organ stuff way back in the day. Did you ever do synth stuff back then? And was the MS-20 any part of that?
For me, the first real synth I got was the Voyager behind me. before that, I had a few other you know, furniture pieces, like a Con Electric Band was probably a true synthesizer, and I had an old Casio back when MIDI first came out, but I don't even remember which one. But back then it was pretty much standalone, and I didn't really have any accessories or any time or knowledge, whatever. But all during that time, I was raising 2 kids, so and working full time and living in a little apartment up in Massachusetts. So it was strictly casual, and I wasn't putting any time into anything. And as far as this one goes, I didn't do any homework on it, so I have no idea what it even sounds like. But if I can find a place to put it, since it's free, I'll try to work it in here somewhere. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a tutorial in a week or 2.
Nice. Let me see if I can pull up a video. We'll just the Arturia released like a tutorial for it, but it's got a few clips within it that show the sound. Like they've used it on some drums, and I think I have this queued up for some drums here.
Excellent.
Let's check this out here.
They are interchangeable, so you can change the way the signal flows and decide that it will first go to the filter, such as in this case.
Oh, that's cool.
Or into the distortion, once we press this button. You can use this while using presets to see how the different signal flow order will affect these. Display a yellow color around them as the master cutoff is moved. Then we see high pass and low pass controls with their dedicated peak controls for each one.
So it also has some
function
advanced panel stuff. I believe this section will just catch a
generator.
moment of it here.
To create modulations, you can use the 3 modulation amount rings to add the value of each modulator. Then you can also define the overall modulation amount with the movement control. The envelope follower creates an envelope shape based.
So I think with those 3 dots, so I have the the MS-20 full synth. I have this, but I haven't gotten to use it yet. But it looks like these 3 dots along the side are modulation mod amounts there, so that you can, like as we were talking, you can have an envelope or something, or an LFO, whatever, sweep both the high pass and the low pass at the same time and do interesting like stereo field stuff as well. But yeah, that kind of like screamy sound, I think, is
That's it.
And I do recall, like, that's one of the cool things that a lot of people did with the MS-20 was route stuff through that filter, like what they were just demonstrating there with the percussion.
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of an interesting purpose, and I'm kind of looking forward to trying it with some drums like they were doing.
Yeah.
It is nice that you can switch the order of things, because that makes a really big difference on how things sound. I mean, if you think about like a wah pedal with guitar, if you're putting it before or after overdrive, it radically changes the sound. It's basically a sweepable bandpass filter with a fairly high Q on it. And so if you're running it after a fuzz or an overdrive or something, it like really just overtakes the sound and as it sweeps through. But if you run it into the distortion, you can sweep the sound. It's a little more familiar, like the Jimi Hendrix sound. You run it into something that's overdriving, and then it can really affect how the harmonics are picked up and just how much they're distorted. So you can use like that. If you're running the filter before the distortion, you can pick the area that it's going to be most distorted, for instance. You can kind of narrow it in on that frequency range and then really push it through, even if you're not using the envelope at all. So
Yeah,
I think
sounds great. Sounds great on drums.
Yeah, I think it might have a lot of use. They have other filter models in their collection as well. So I mean, they got the ladder filter and the the Sim 12 dB filter and some other ones too. So I think this is going to be a really great addition for that.
I agree.
So let me put up here. So let's kind of move back here for a moment and talk about some of the stuff that the four of us have been working on. Oh, by the way, I don't think I ever said what I was up to, as I see it sitting to the left of me.
Look there.
Aha.
What's been up, Cryss?
Aha.
So yeah, I mean, just like you guys, it's things have been nuts here, and so over the last few weeks or so, I've been doing a lot of selling stuff. Like I've got stuff sitting around here. My guitar rig used to be quite a bit bigger and had a lot of stuff, and I just don't need as much anymore. So I'm spending a lot of time recording in the box, and I just need to maintain enough stuff that if I want to go out and gig, I can gig. And so been moving stuff out, which has been good, and also a total pain in the ass because I hate dealing with that stuff. But you know, I got it done, and so I'm glad about that. So you guys saw 2 weeks ago that I had picked up this really awesome P bass, and so a couple of my projects, I just decided to go nuts on bass. So with all the stuff that I did, so I replaced the pickup in that and put a hand wound pickup in there. For my Rickenbacker next to it, the neck pickup. It's a 4003 model, and it's like kind of a modern version of the 4001, which is what like Paul McCartney and Geddy Lee played. And so one of the things I had wanted to do to it was change the neck pickup out. So I put a Rickenbacker toaster pickup in there, which has got a vintage sound. It's a lot closer to kind of the classic tones that I enjoyed from those old records. And so I was like, well, this is great. And I still have my Stingray in the closet. And, for all this time, like I love, live has always been a lead guitar player. And, but I've always loved bass and recording with bass and of course synthesizers I love. So, after I had gotten done, I'd sold like several pedals and got them shipped off. And then my buddy came over and he's like, hey, I'm getting rid of my bass. Are you interested? And so it was something I did not have. And this is a Fender Mustang bass. And if it looks small, it's because it is. It's a short scale bass. It's still like the size of a regular electric guitar, but its scale length between the nut and the bridge are much shorter than your average bass. But so this is kind of a modern take on a 1960s Fender bass. But they added a jazz bass pickup to it. And so with the shorter scale length, it gets really interesting because you would think, well, it's Fender and it should be pretty close to the precision bass, but it just has this really cool, almost not lo-fi in terms of frequency response, but in the kind of... I call it thwap. Like the thuddiness of it is like a lot of kind of vintage and lo-fi kind of music has that sound. And so fell in love with it, and all of a sudden I had the money sitting there because I'd sold stuff. So I decided to pick that up and just go, well, I've got all my bass stuff set now. I don't need to look at anything more. And so I'm calling them Grizzly, Growly, Thumpy, and Thwappy.
I forgot Slappy.
Slappy. Well, Growly would technically be really great for Slappy, but
Okay.
I don't do a whole lot of it.
Well, sounds like you need 3 more.
Yes. And of course he does.
Yeah, well, the precision bass and the Mustang had kind of been on the wish list for a long time. I don't know. I mean, there's things that I'll just go like, I've got to get this and I got to buy it, but I don't know if there's a list of stuff. I think all of it's like we want more and more and more, but realistically, we're not going to get all that stuff. And there's kind of a hierarchy of what's most important. What do I need here? What do I not need? And some of these things, like a short scale bass, was not a priority, but it just happened to be at that time. I'm like, this is something I'm constantly looking at and that I'd like, and got to sit and play it and do some recording with, and like, yeah, I need to do this. So the timing was perfect. So speaking of gear and setups, well, Tim, you've got a new Eurorack module to tell us about, right?
I do. I took delivery of a Make Noise XPO, and that's they describe it as a stereo prismatic oscillator, which is pretty flowery.
Sounds fancy, yeah.
Yeah. In real terms, what does that mean? But anyway, it does stereo pulse width modulation. It's a single oscillator, but it has stereo pulse width modulation, so it's pretty incredible how the thing sounds. I ordered it back I just got it a couple days ago. I ordered it back in late August, I think. I pre-ordered it, and it just came in. So they've slowly but surely been getting them out there, but I guess it's the whole supply and demand or parts problem. So it's taken a minute, but it sounds really cool. I goofed with it for, I don't know, just today. Just finally put it in my little Eurorack that's over here. I goofed with it for, I don't know, maybe a half an hour, and then it seemed like. Well, let me see if this will work. I don't think it's going to work. I think we decided this wasn't going to work, but let me try it. Let's see. Let me know if you guys can hear that.
No, can't.
No sound. Okay. Well, that's fine. I also updated I'm using Loopback, as a means to get audio into our stream, and I updated that just today. So now it doesn't seem to.
So now it's broken. That's how it goes.
Seem to be working, and that's what happens. I almost did it before last. It popped up just today, and I was like, sometimes I get really compulsive about those, and I know, don't do it. Don't update just before you're about to do a show or need what you're doing. Do it when there's a stretch of time. So, but I did. I went for it anyway. Anyway, the thing sounds killer. I was going to try to play it for you guys, but obviously I can't. But it's a really interesting piece. It has all.
Which one is it? Can you point to it?
Yeah, it's this piece here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's just the blackface piece here.
They made it the right color. There you go.
Oh yeah. Did
they make it brown like a DX7 or anything? That's good.
No DX7 works anywhere, and it's very like West Coast style. Actually, it's very additive sounding, which I love. It's very contrasting to the Moog and any other sort of subtractive stuff I have. But what I was going to say is it has 11 simultaneous outputs. So you can have a sine, a triangle, a sawtooth, a spike wave, which is really interesting.
A spike?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like a super narrow looking...
Like square or triangle?
Kind of like a pulse, but I mean, it's just super, super narrow.
Interesting.
And then it has 3 sets of stereo outputs. One is pulse width, one is sort of a wave folding version, and these have independent left and right modulation controls.
Here, I'm going to pop this up.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's
nice.
pull it in here.
See if there's a way to check it out. Yeah, so, okay, yeah, there you go. So across the top are all of those just straight waveform outputs. They're not controlled by the modulation, but the FM does affect them, and pitch, obviously. That one pitch affects everything. It's just global. So you have those across the top, those waveforms. The sync input there on the top right, I'm not sure even yet what that does. I'm not really totally positive. I think it's supposed to be in relation to the frequency somehow. So it's not like It's not like some sort of like clock, but I don't know. I have to get to that. And then that FM bit right there is pretty wild, and it does affect the outputs across the top. But then there's the kind of alpha pitch knob there that affects everything. So I mean, you can have those 11 different outputs all exactly tuned the same way, but all with different sounds going. So I mean, you can do some crazy cool combos. But yeah, those two the stereo pairs then just underneath that sync input. So it's got the pulse width, kind of the wave folding, and then forget what the one across the bottom is. It might be the spike. I think it is. I think so it's left and right with the spike. And then the next kind of level down, you can see there's a modulator left and a modulator right, modulator R. And so those are completely independent. So you can get, it's so fat and crazy big sounding. Very, very cool. And then, go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering, like, you could probably do some really interesting things in stereo with this.
That's the whole thing. It's all stereo, even though it's a single oscillator. But the modulation parts of it are true stereo. So, really brilliant and cool sounding thing. Across the bottom there, it has 2 inputs for volt per octave. So I don't know. I plugged into them. They both seem to do regular volt per octave, and they don't. It's not like you can have 2 separate oscillator tone or notes going on. So it's not for that, but I don't know exactly what it's for. I haven't figured that part out yet. And like I said, I just kind of hooked it up. But anyway, highly recommend. They've taken forever to come in, but wow, the sound of that. Marshall, you would love the sound of this thing. I really wanted to be able to demonstrate it, but there's plenty of other things.
Oh, yeah, there we go. We got a video right there.
Stereo.
Yeah.
We'll take a little sampling. Oh.
Yeah, it does have a sub
I dig it.
oscillator.
It's got some pretty hefty.
It's super fat.
Try one more here.
Yeah. So I mean,
Oh yeah, right there.
yeah,
sounds
that's
good.
bad, right?
Nice, proper fat bottom bass right there.
Yeah, well, so they're giving some real world setups there, but I was just going to show you the raw thing, which is just wow, it's powerful. So anyway, I took delivery. I hadn't had a chance to mess with it because of the show I was playing, but now it's in the rack and I get to start messing with it. And I got the QPOS is there also sort of hand in hand, also stereo filter.
I was looking at that some time ago, and I thought it looked really interesting. And now this XPO, man, that's a really damn cool module.
Yeah, I think those two things together are going to really lead to some fun exploration.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, are they still pretty far back ordered? Do you know?
Yeah, this is still the first batch. And Perfect Circuit, which I would expect is probably the biggest modular dealer in the country, they ran out pretty quick and then just had to send out apology letters. Sorry, we just only got so many from them, and I know you guys are wanting them, but we don't have them to give out. And I didn't buy from them because I thought that if I got from still a national dealer but somewhat smaller, that I might have a better chance of being on a shorter list, instead of, nothing against Perfect Circuit. I mean, they're great, but so I went with Three Wave Music, which is in New Jersey.
So Mr. Cow Food is saying the Q-Pass was based on a Moog Voyager filter.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. I think it is so I think it might be some kind of ladder filter. Not positive about that, but anyway. Obviously, Mr. Cow Food do know. Moo to you, Cow Food. What's up, dude? So, yep, that's sort of my gear fund for the week, for sure.
And you want to tell us about the? Oh no, we'll leave Winter Solstice till later. I think we'll show it at the end so people can go check it out afterwards. I think.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm wanting to get to Brian's take on the Mini Moog, but also let's sneak in before that. Marshall's live setup. You've been doing some more work on that, and you actually did just put out a video too.
I did indeed, and I have it. I've got some camera shots. Oh, look at there! There it is. Right there. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Nice.
I'm gonna make this big. We got to have a look.
So I took the ARP 2600 out just at ease of changing patches and stuff. I figured I should just go all digital here with this setup. So Nordwave, Roland JP8000, chord radius. There's a D50 there. I got to plug it in, or a DO5, I should say, sitting there on the radius. And a Quantum and a V-Synth and a Roland TB3. You see the Behringer TD3 over there. It gets all confusing as they named them like almost exactly the same. Anyway, that doesn't have MIDI ECC control of the filter, so I swapped it out, even though I prefer the sound of the Behringer to most of the Roland clones that they've done. And then there's a JD08 just in front of the TB3 there. So, yeah, it's coming along. Here we get a top-down view there. And all powered by the Blue ARP there on the left. So, and yeah, it's coming together nice, guys.
It's a pretty rocking setup. I mean, it's pretty big.
Oh yeah, and it's cool because I've got it to where I can control it from here, which is very helpful with workflow to try and get things dialed in and in terms of mixing and coming up with melodies and things. I can do that from here. I have to go in there to do the sound design, but I can kind of get things going from here, go in there, tweak stuff, and then also kind of practice some stuff from here, and then go out there, do some more practicing. So yeah, we should see some updates from me on that here soon as well. Some more in-depth videos on that, and hopefully some performance coming up soon.
You used to have the 2600 set up in there as well. Did that get pulled to this room now?
No, it won't fit in here. Not unless I take something out. So right now it is in my living room.
No!
I have enough stuff to set up a third room, but I think before I do that, I need to set up some network audio, do some Dante or AVB stuff for that. So I've got room for it to set up kind of like another little studio, but yeah, it's one of those problems when you have so many amazing synths. It's like you can't fit them all in one room unless you got a big, huge like area. So it's gonna have to get split up. But yeah, I still have it. Still have everything. I'm like you, Chris. I don't really like selling stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, living room. That's a great place to display it, and also very convenient to play if you need. But we had for a while part of my guitar rig and also my wife's drum kit. And it was just like a normal part of our living room.
Yeah. Well, and I also have the JD800 in there, and then my Arturia Matrix Brute that was where the Oberheim is now. those are all also in the living room as looks like kind of cool furniture, I guess. You know, people probably come over, they're like, "What in the hell is this guy doing?" Most people have shelves, and no, I got synths. Sorry, guys.
You're like the Jay Leno of synthesizers.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's coming together good, guys. I'm really excited for the live stuff, and my proof of concept is confirmed. So I think everything I wanted to do is going to be possible. And I've been watching some tutorial videos. One of the problems that I've been trying to fix before I left on my trip was for some of it, I'm going to be using some plugins for certain effects and sounds and things. And what I didn't realize, because I've never done it before, but to change patches for some of those soft synths, it's a little more complicated than what I thought. Mm-hmm. It seems that you almost have to set up separate instances and enable and disable them in Ableton to do that. At least that's kind of what I'm gathering for the plugin stuff, right? The synths themselves, those can be triggered. I can actually save the patch per pattern in BlueArp, and the BlueArp will change it when I switch patterns for me. But it's also, you can send those messages over CC to the instruments through Ableton as well. But when you're dealing with a plugin, it's like a little different. Some of them, I think, can respond to program change commands. But I'm using that DX7 clone thing, the Ops 7, I think is what it is. It'll work with SysX, which I don't think Ableton does SysX. So I'm kind of left with I'm going to have to come up with another solution. So it's like all these little problems you got to try and kind of figure out, but it can be done as well. So
that's such a cool, sophisticated. It's complicated, but it's going to be super badass what you're doing, man.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's coming together nice. Sounding pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're on top of it?
Oh yeah, making some good progress now. I was a little concerned there for a while, just at the complexity. But once I got a lot of the setup configured in Ableton here, and actually I can kind of switch to this. This is my live setup on the Open Labs Miko that's in there. It's a synthesizer that's disguised, or a computer disguised as a synthesizer, right? But I've got it running Windows 10. And so I've set up everything to route the audio, because I'm basically using Ableton as a mixer at this point. I'm doing some sequencing, but it's only for percussion at this point. But then also I can do filter cutoff commands that route back through, or just regular CC messaging that routes back through BlueArp and then can be converted from any CC message to whatever it actually is on the synth. So there's a lot of flexibility there with how this works. But just getting this set up to where it can do what it needs to do has been a bit of a chore. But we're doing good now. Let me switch myself back. There we go.
That's kind of I can really relate to that. Only what we're doing is different things, but it's just the complexity and your proof of concept, thinking I have this idea, I'm pretty positive it'll work, and then working out those details and then making it work, like going through that process. And that's sort of what I've been doing with my live rig, though it's not as complicated as yours, but still I was having a lot of trouble. So I can really relate to that, where you're at, and finally feeling like you're on top of it, and now, guess what gets to happen finally? Music.
Now I get to actually make music with it. Right, exactly. But it's like that, though.
So can relate,
It's almost like setting up a template for that particular setup, and once that's kind of dialed in, you can work within that framework and then push it as well, push its limits. So.
Right. Once you finally get everything working, you're going to start messing with it. I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah.
This is our lives.
Well, and then you've got the several added layers of complexity on top of, even just doing that as a live jam,
right,
over YouTube or whatever, because then you're adding the camera stuff and
Yep.
the display stuff and all that kind of stuff. And
the screen. And,
you seem
Yeah,
to
and
have the aptitude for controlling all the technology and making it all integrate together.
Integrate and hopefully come up with something enjoyable for everyone. So yeah,
not worthy,
that's cool
not
too.
worthy.
Like being able to do the visuals. That's a whole other element that we don't really think about a lot of times. But I think if I was able to get booked somewhere to do a live show, it's cool to have some of that incorporated into your. Oops, as I drop stuff, incorporated into your rig, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
Chris. Well, I was just going to say, Marshall, I'd love to see, and I know people are doing it, but what I think is really cool about seeing somebody do a live synth thing, like what you're going to do, is to have that overhead camera and then projected so that you can see more of what's happening, because it's just not visually very exciting to sit there with some boxes in front of you, and then you're making these very small movements,
Adjustments, and
you know, it's not like windmills on guitar and you can't repeat Townsend.
Well, you can get a keytar, Tim.
Yeah, well, I'm
Totally
not doing
do
that,
some-
Marshall. That's not my thing. I play drums. That's enough of that for me.
Okay.
But really, it'd be great to see what you're doing with that overhead cam and project it on.
Yeah, I mean, for the video stuff, it'll be possible. The problem is the screen that I have in there. It's an LED curtain, and so it's kind of low res. It looks almost like ASCII art. You can see there, I got a video playing, some Halo cinematics there. I don't know that it's going to be clear enough to show actual footage of me doing stuff. It might not be
I
high
gotcha.
enough resolution. Eventually,
I
I'd like
gotcha.
to actually get a video wall that I can do that with, but those are super expensive. So
Right. I just thought,
D-beams for life, man.
oh,
I
dude.
love D-beams.
I just thought maybe that was just an effect that you were showing through the screen, and it was capable of normal video. But
Oh
I
yeah,
see-
no,
I see your point.
it's little, it's LEDs, but they're spaced a certain amount apart, and there's only, I can't remember the resolution of the actual screen, but it's pretty low res.
Yeah, but it's cool. Like it's
It
got
is
the
cool.
pixelated
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah, it is cool. But yeah, so when I do the videos and stuff, I'll actually have, I'll be able to, show top-down views and things like that. I'm going to put another GoPro, I think, in the back. We were talking about that before the end of the show, as a top-down for the synths in the back row there. So
Oh yeah, nice.
yeah, it gets pretty complicated though. You start adding all this stuff, and but it's cool. Like the end product is neat, and hopefully everyone enjoys.
Oh, it's going to be incredible, dude.
Yeah.
So the
One
only
thing
problem
that's-
I'd have with all that is that you come up with the song idea, you're pretty sure it's all going to work. You spend a day and a half, getting everything set up, figuring out what patches, what songs you're going to use, what keyboards, how it's all going to work. You spend the whole time getting it all set up, and by the time you're done, you go back and go, now what was that song idea I had?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. So now I got to remember. I have a couple of songs already in my head that I want to work out. And the interesting thing is, like with this setup, you can kind of play them with any set of sounds, and they all sound good. So the problem I have now is like, which song with which set of sounds do I want to use? It's kind of weird when
Yeah.
you think about it. Because my normal workflow is I'll sit down and I'll just start working on something, and once I get an idea, then I, from start to finish, that's it. But with this, it's kind of extremely flexible, so you can, and that might actually make for some very interesting live performance as well, because you might hear something come in at a certain point and come back with a different set of sounds in terms of melody, right?
Mhm.
So that might be interesting to do as well.
Definitely.
There's something about having the visuals along with it, and I've always really appreciated when bands have done that, or musical artists or whatever have done that to a good effect. I mean, Pink Floyd was like very big about that stuff. I mean, really elaborate as far as their stage setups, and I was watching. So a couple of my buddies just went and saw Metallica play at it was a charity concert. And so they did their thing. It was great. And Kirk Campbell was playing the old Peter Green Les Paul and live and just one of the most expensive guitars on the planet. It was all cool, but like it was just one big screen behind them, which itself I think is as cool. But as far as like the stage setup goes, one thing that I think is getting lost in rock bands, because a lot of people are going to digital stuff, live, fractal, and things like that, where I think perhaps like the actual electronic artists that are playing synthesizers are keeping up, is like having the look of a band actually, or artists being up on stage and having instruments to play, where like even with the Metallica stuff, they're up there with guitars, bass, and drums, but like there was a couple cabinets and there was no, you didn't see anything else. There's no amps, there's no switching stuff there. All that stuff is off stage, and so it's just like very minimal setup. And it maybe it's the era they grew up in, but it kind of feels like a little incomplete as far as a setup goes. Whereas something like this, and like with what Tim was saying about being able to observe it, there is a lot of fun in observing. Like if you can have it set up to where the visuals and actually what you're doing are in balance. A lot of times I think with electronic artists, they get caught up in what they're doing, and the whole video is just about them showing the stuff that they're doing and turning knobs, rather than as much of the performance or the visual, the art part of it that goes with it. But I don't know. I think it's getting, the electronic artists are still keeping up that a lot better than a lot of the rock artists, unfortunately.
And I'd say the only thing I want to add to this whole thing in there is I need a fog machine. I need a smoke machine.
Oh yeah,
I gotta have that.
It's a given.
See, now you need to have
Merry Christmas.
for with the modify your D beam so they actually emit some sort of visible light through the fog, and you're like,
Yes.
I wonder if I think they're infrared, so you probably wouldn't see them in fog.
You could just put like a laser type light right beside it, though.
Yeah.
Right.
In
And
parallel
then
with
something
it.
you could stop, and then you could just capture both, right? No problem.
Yeah.
And it would appear to the audience like that was happening.
Here's what you forgot: the bubble machine.
Oh, there you go. Oh man, that's even better. Thanks, Wagyu. That's gonna happen.
Only the bubbles are like 13 feet in diameter.
Giant bubbles.
They're like huge bubbles.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
It'd be like flaming lips or whatever.
Right.
So talking about like this, the visuals and the gear and the setup and stuff, I always really enjoy your videos, Brian, because you got a little of all of that going on with lighting and everything in the videos, and then you've of course got your all your beautiful Moogs there. Tell us about your setup, because sure probably a few people maybe haven't seen your stuff before, but you've got a really incredible setup there.
Okay. Well, I kind of surrounded myself. What you can't see directly in front of me, I've got my Behringer mixer, which basically everything goes into. And then I've got an RC505 sitting next to my MacBook, and 3 monitors so I can see what's going on. And then as you start rotating around, on this side we've got with the latest setup, the Moog 1 on the bottom and the new Model D up top. And as you rotate to the back, we've got the Voyager up on top, and then the Yamaha, that's a PSR S975, which is sort of the rest of the band for me. That's where I get a lot of my percussion and backup stuff. And below that is an old Alesis QS 8.1, 88 key weighted piano, organ, and synth all kind of rolled into one. That's the finest you could get in about 1990 or so. And that still does a lot of good stuff. And then as you continue going on off in this back corner where you can't really see it, I've got the semi-modular collection. There's a Subharmonicon, a DFAM, and a Mother 32 back there, and an Arturia drum brute in the foreground, and then a Grandmother and Matriarch top and bottom on the stuff that's on my left. And If I want to actually hear it in the room, I've got a pair of Roland KC600 keyboard amps, and they're stacked on top of a couple old PV KB300s, which I don't use because they rattle too much. But if you ever need to move the house off the foundation, you can't turn everything on. This room's only about 12 feet long and maybe 10 feet wide. So we have the power to lift the house. And then off in the corner, I've got what's left of my old stereo system with the turntable and CD changer and receiver and a couple other odds and ends there. So that can all still be tied in and used or sampled. And then as far as lighting goes, I've got the LED strips going around that can do a number of things. I've got my disco set up with a number of these things, and some of them are tucked under keyboards, so you get more over here and more over there. So we can
I dig it.
turn the room around.
Yeah.
That looks nice on the Moog One over there.
Yeah.
And so we can turn it into pretty much whatever. I've got a couple of police rotating beacons, a red and a blue. Of course, I have my pink flamingo and my green cactus, and
As you should.
yeah, and we got a black light and an old laser, sound activated laser in the corner that I don't use very much, but they might turn up at something someday. But that's basically the room.
So I got to ask, like, what does your wife think of all this? Does she just not even venture down there, or does she think it's cool?
She's probably watching upstairs, so I have to be careful. But no, she tolerates me very well. I cannot say enough about that. I will say that pretty much any new thing I buy means I have to take her to Europe one more time.
Oh.
So we went to Greece last summer, and we're probably going back next fall. So
It's worth it.
yeah, I'm good with all that too.
Such punishment, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
A new synthesizer and a trip to Greece. Let's get a stove.
I got a question for you, Brian. I've been pretty interested in getting a Voyager. Do you have any recommendations? Because I know there's several different types. There's the old schools. There's the, the performance edition. There's like a whole bunch of different variants. Do you have?
Yeah, really, they're not all that different. The one I've got's an anniversary edition.
Okay.
The first several releases, maybe the first 6 versions of it, all had like one set of presets, and they were unique to that model. So, like the anniversary edition had, 128 or so presets in it, and that was it. But then they did a firmware upgrade. They actually swapped out a board, I think. I did that one myself, which is kind of interesting. But if you have got the latest firmware, it adds the ability to have 8 banks of patches. So basically, anything with the new firmware upgrade has everything ever put into any Voyager ever. So, including mine now. So it really doesn't matter. You can still get all the sounds. The only one that's different is the old school, because that doesn't have
Presets, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it doesn't have the screen or the
Yeah.
chaos pad or whatever, so that makes it a little more like a Model D. But yeah, I think any of the newer versions, as long as you get the latest firmware, any one of them will do great.
Oh, that's good. Good to hear. Because I've seen prices kind of coming down here since the reissue was announced and gone live. So I'm kind of like, this is probably a good time to buy one of those.
Yeah,
It's Voyagers.
yeah, better hurry. They might come out with a new reissue of the Voyager, and that'll drive
Right.
all the prices up again. So
Yeah.
this might be a good time to jump in.
Yeah, I agree.
I waited till the third round on the Model D, and I've probably paid the most of anybody anywhere. So.
So, have you compared the Model D to the Voyager?
Yeah, I actually did my one video with the D in it is just kind of comparing the two side by side. I just played a song using both of them, so it goes back and forth. They had similar patches. They really complement each other. I'm still figuring out the Model D. It's where it's more simplistic compared to all the other ones. I will say I think it's got the most driving raw power to it. It's the most aggressive of anything here, and I'm sure I'm going to find some pretty useful stuff for that. the Voyager also, now that I've seen the Model D next to it, I really appreciate the Voyager even more for what they did when they created it, because it maintained most of the Model D's sound capability, but it also introduced a lot of additional features like the presets, so you can actually remember and go back to something.
Yeah.
That's one of the main things I like, because I've got the 2016 reissue Model D, which is amazing, right? But if I want to use it for, say, my live rig, which would be amazing, it's going to need some presets.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. Well, that's why Rick Wakeman had about 5 of them. One for each preset.
Yeah.
But, same with Richard Wright. Also, they'd have the knobs all taped up.
Yeah.
Yep.
You get a used one, you'll see a lot of paint and tape and little markers everywhere. But one thing I really like about the Voyager is just with the stereo output. The stereo field on the effects it does is pretty amazing. And in the video I made, you can kind of hear that the D is kind of pushing down the middle with the mono part of it, because I wasn't using any effects on it. And the Voyager was doing similar stuff, but it was all kind of surrounding you at the same time. So the two together really came out pretty well, I thought.
Here, let me jump in here and pop this up, and let's listen to a minute of it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This, I believe, is it. Oh no, that's not it.
Nope,
Hold on.
that's us. That's okay too.
That's good too.
Let's try this again. Upper tab. There we go. All right. Skip ahead a little here. Man, that sounds good.
Wow.
Keep in mind, I only had it about a day at that point, so I'm still just turned it on and said, okay, this sounds about right. Let's try it, and that was it. So
I noticed, like, at least the way that you had them set there, that you're using the Mini like in a much more raw, textured way, and that Voyager was all about the smoothness, and they really complemented one another.
Yep, that was definitely my first impression.
Actually, I've enjoyed that Voyager in a lot of your videos. I keep telling you if I come out to visit, I'm going to take it home with me. But it sounds really good. I wish they would make that again.
They will.
I gotta say, I'm glad that they've done the reissue of the D again. Honestly,
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised, honest, that when they stopped production of the first reissue, like it's Moog, right? And that's like their most like iconic synth, right? They should make that in perpetuity, like as long as they can. They should just make that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Moog as a company has never really been known for their business acumen. Bob was a great engineer, but if you read his autobiography, it's pretty revealing. And it's just amazing we've got what we've got today. Because he financed most of that himself, and in spite of everybody that was messing with him.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's difficult because if you have such a talent for circuit design, in order to get something to market, you really have to be a jack of all trades and wear a lot of different hats, and that's difficult. I mean, somebody may be a great circuit designer, but not the greatest businessman, and vice versa. I mean, we see it go the other way too, where people with great business acumen are just killing it in the market, but their product's not that great, and so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough.
You gotta have that duo, like the Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
whole dynamic. We got the engineer that's really great at that, and the what do you call it?
Idea guy,
showman, right? The showman on the other side.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, those sound incredible, man. That's so cool. The D does really have a different character, and it does cut through. It almost felt as though it was, louder in the mix, but I didn't know that it was necessarily that so much as just it finds its own spot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I had limiters set so that nothing could go beyond and blow the room up. But
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
even at that, it definitely cuts a lot. It's much sharper. I say that's revolutionized it for keyboard players because finally it could cut through all the guitars.
Yeah, exactly.
They got that right.
Yeah.
Well, how do you compare the Matriarch to the Model D and the Voyager? I know a few of us have Matriarchs, but how do you find it in comparison?
I think the Matriarch's a whole different class of synth. It's I'd say it's more gentle in the most part. With all the stereo delays and all the effects you can do with it, it's really kind of subtle. It's more. I don't normally use it for leads. It's more like complex rhythm, background sequences, arpeggios. It's just it fills a nice space, but it's not something I think that could ever replace the D or the Voyager as far as that goes. The Grandmother's probably a little closer. That's a little more aggressive. Mm-hmm. And it has some of the same features as the Matriarch as far as the arpeggiators and sequencing abilities, but that tends to sound a little more like the Voyager D-class synth. It definitely has really good bass capability and stuff like that. So I'd say the Grandmother, the Voyager, and the D are all in the same family. The Matriarch's sort of a different class, and then if you mix them all together with the semi-modular stuff, that's really where the Grandmother and the Matriarch are more interesting because you can kind of patch them in and with the semi-modular rig and do a whole lot of other crazy stuff there that you wouldn't be able to do with like a D, for instance.
Well, it's been nice. I mean, using my Matriarch as a modular along with my Euro rack has been a lot of fun, and I kind of agree. It has a really nice creamy tone to it. I do love it for leads. It's got such a fantastic sound, and then having up to 4 oscillators at your disposal Some of my favorite tones have actually been on the duophonic mode, and having two oscillators per each voice and playing, and then of course with all the stereo stuff has been really nice. But also it's been kind of fun to run. It seems like it's got so much of that smooth creaminess, and especially when you overdrive, some of the sections like the mixer and the filter, the way it distorts is really nice. Like I felt like some synthesizers have kind of a nasty distortion to them, and sometimes they're like when I hear a memory Moog, they always sound very crunchy to me, whereas the Matriarch has kind of a creamy overdrive to it when it starts to saturate. But being that like the filter doesn't open as quite as far as like a Model D, it's fun to kind of run out of the Matriarch into some other filters. And one of my favorite combinations has been the Matriarch oscillators going into a Polyvox filter. And Polyvox filter, it's it's not as crazy as say that MS-20 filter is, but it's got like a little snarl to it, a little growl that the Matriarch doesn't have, and it's kind of fun to use that, or run it into like even a Roland filter or something. It's been pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm probably going to start doing some experimenting before too long. But I was kind of curious what happens if you run the Moog 1 into the D.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
So how would you configure that? Like running its oscillators out from the inserts and
I was
to
thinking maybe
the
going
filter?
from the sub out into the external in, and see what happens.
Absolutely.
The sub out on the one doesn't have effects applied to that, right? So it's just a dry analog.
Well, it doesn't have the master effects on it, but it still would be after the inserts, wouldn't it? The insert effects.
I don't know. I've never tried it yet.
Yeah, I think if you ran out, like if you want to get probably like to make the best combo would be to run out of the insert, and then that into like the filter section or the mix. I don't know what the inputs are on the new Model Ds, but if you could run into the mixer or the filter from there, that would probably be really cool. And then you would bypass some of the later stuff in the Moog 1 and kind of have a really combination of the two.
I just figured 48 oscillators into the Model D filter ought to be pretty crazy.
We're going to get a Facebook update. I had to send my Model D back to Moog to be fixed. I definitely wouldn't do it with the main out.
Wormhole or something in space.
Yeah. Read about a big fire in the greater Cincinnati area. It might be me.
What do you guys say? As far as like filters go, kind of just been thinking about that MS-20 and stuff again. Like, what are you guys' thoughts about synth filters? What are your favorites from Eurorack or Monosynths, Polysynths? What are the ones that really get you going, and why?
That's a tough one for me because I really haven't explored that much with just filters as a module. In fact, the QPOS from Make Noise, that one that we were discussing earlier, that's really the first module that I've had just a standalone filter that's, an analog piece or whatever that I've goofed with. So it's hard to say. I will say that I always gravitate towards the Oberheim filter. I just love the Synth. I mean, but in terms of being able to like make qualitative comparisons, I don't know. Like, not really so sure that I have everything that dialed in enough to say, oh, this filter would be cool with this particular oscillator or whatever. I don't really have that dialed in enough. Most of the synths that I've goofed with or in my life have been integrated already. Full voices.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's a great question, but I'm excited to play with the QPOS and see what sort of differences that brings. But I do absolutely love the classic Oberheim.
Yeah, most definitely. Have you ever tried any of your Eurorack going in just the audio signal? Because I know you're dealing with like volts per octave versus hertz per octave. But have you tried any of your Eurorack oscillators being routed into the back end of your MS-10, like to use the filter and the drive from the other parts of the circuit?
No, I didn't. I had never made that experiment happen yet. That'd be a great one. It'd be really interesting. Yeah. But I didn't really even have too many. Well, really until this past year, I didn't even have standalone oscillators. So sort of for one thing, my motivation, I would say, for having Eurorack was just so that I could expand the semi-modular synths that I already had. Mm-hmm. So some of the first stuff I was getting was more about sequencing and was more about modulation, especially. Just certain ways that I could kind of goof with and interact with what the semi-modulars were that I had. So kind of the last thing I've done is sort of get to like, okay, and now here's an oscillator and a filter and an envelope, and like that's kind of the way everybody else would start out. But I wanted to use it as just sort of a furtherance in a way to change the architecture of the semi-modular stuff. So I'm kind of coming at it backwards. Go figure.
I'm kind of the same boat as Tim. Like I don't have enough like specific technical knowledge of this filter is this and that's why it does this or that. But I will say I do really like the 303 filter. Mm-hmm. It's pretty unique. And of course the Moog ladder filters, you can't go wrong with that. So yeah, I think those are kind of my main two. The Steiner Parker that's on the Matrix Brute is pretty cool too.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I don't think I've ever played a Matrix Brute, but I've heard a lot of people talk about that in a very positive way.
Yeah, the thing about the Oberheim filter, that style of filter and that in particular, is it can be super buzzy. Like it can really open up way beyond like what we were talking about with a matriarch or something. It can really open up and be buzzy, which I love. But then it can also be soft and kind of creamy, like what you were describing, but just kind of a little more where the saturation of it or whatever is kind of rounding off the edges just a little bit, which is awesome. And yeah, very much the matriarch thing. But man, the Oberheim filter can be super buzzy and in your face.
Yeah, I really enjoyed having the OBX8 here, and I tell you that filter is amazing. It sounds, I mean, on any of the Oberheim filters that I have, or the Sim filters, but that one, like just cranking it up all the way, even you think like, oh, this is gonna just be ear splitting, and it's not. It's so musical. Like the way they have it voiced is, I mean. It's kind of crazy how some of these things came about in the first place, because there's been so many great pieces of gear like filters. There's been so many great filters, and there's been some and synthesizers, and there's been some really awful ones. How did these early guys get things so right? If you think about it, I mean, you're thinking about Bob Moog and Tom Oberheim and or Leo Fender and Jim Marshall. I mean, how did these guys? It's nuts. And Leo Fender is an excellent example. It's like, he revolutionized the guitar market and the amp market at the same time, and was absolutely brilliant. And when you study some of their decisions, like for at least for Leo Fender, it's like some of the appointments on the guitars were not made for tonal reasons. They're like, this is the part we can get, or it costs 3 cents cheaper, things like that. Jim Marshall, Marshall Amplifiers wasn't even a guitar player, he was a drummer, so, these guys like hit upon something that just sounds so good. And you're like, what was the secret? What kind of crazy stuff happened that these guys just hit upon a really good formula right away? I don't know.
I'd really like to mention that Herb Deutsch, who just passed away, was a huge part of Moog, and was the musician part of their they basically had just a partnership, right? I mean, they sort of made Moog synthesizers what they were at the time. They sort of invented them together, really. And definitely Herb was like the musician. So I have a feeling that with, there it is. There's that nice pairing again, Marshall, like what you're talking about, where you have sort of the idea guy or the guy that can do the engineering part, and the guy that has the fine tuning part, which would have been Herb in that case. And so R.I.P. by the way, Herb Deutsch. Sad to see him go, another icon. He just went a few days back. So, but yeah. I really think that's one of the ways that they got it. Obviously, there's just some luck. And when there's new ground like that, I don't think that they're trying to get to any particular thing. They're trying to make their own thing happen, which sort of blows off the limitations a little bit. Probably makes them feel a little more inspired because they're just doing something. Wow, we're creating this thing that I don't know it's ever even been done before, and blah blah blah. And so I think
there's
also
probably many other examples of individuals who attempted but were unsuccessful, so we don't know about them. Right. So cream of the crop rises to the top, that whole thing. So
yeah. And there's something to say about at the time parts that were used that will play into it. I mean, with guitars, a lot of the 50s Gibsons in particular, and Fenders as well, but we're using a lot of very old wood. And by the time you got to the 70s, that was kind of dried up, and the stock of wood that they were using to make them wasn't quite as good. Things like that. The vacuum tubes that were being made for amps back in the day were, made a little bit different than they are today, and oftentimes were better. But, that's some limited examples of, what would play into some of these features. But
it's hours and hours of experimental time, too. And sometimes they just get lucky. I mean, a lot of those guys will tell you, I don't know, like I wasn't even really necessarily trying to make this iconic thing. I was trying to make something cool, and it's true. I mean, you'll see that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, the Model D original was a mistake. The rawness of its sound is because somebody, when they were doing the schematic, put the wrong number down. And they ended up overdriving the thing like crazy, probably 10 times what it was designed to do, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Well, and so there you go. Yeah. There you go.
Things happen.
There it is. So that's part of the answer, too,
Yeah.
Well, as we're getting a little bit closer to the end of the show here, we still want to hit a couple more things, and perhaps we'll start with what's going on, what's in the coming week for you guys, and we want to talk about Tim's songs for Winter Solstice, and also play a little bit. Maybe we'll play a little bit of the collaboration track that we did, and so hey, Marshall, what you got going on, man? What's next?
I'm just going to be in that room next door for probably the rest of the year here, trying to hammer something out so that Inky doesn't fly down here and, make sure I do it, So she's been a real big encouragement, and I really appreciate that. So, yeah, I definitely need to get my rear in gear and get something solid down for everyone. So that's coming.
Nice. Inky is wonderful. She's one of the most wonderful people in our big group of friends and music and synth lovers. She's one of the best.
She's excellent.
We love the ink.
Tim, well, how about you?
Well, what's coming up is Christmas, and it's just going to be. There's not much you can get really done on that level, but I have a Christmas card, which I've done 3 of, which is they're little musical Christmas cards. I have a 4th one that I had started and hoped to finish by Christmas. Probably not going to happen, but we'll see. I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe the next couple of days I can, and which would just be fun to do. It'll be, sort of anticlimactic if it's after Christmas, obviously. But I have several devices that actually need some updating and haven't been done. I have 2 Keystep Pros. They both need to be updated. I have a plates from Mutable Instruments that has a great update that I still haven't done because my bloody nose has been to the grindstone
Yeah.
doing this live show, man. I've just been like nothing but that. I don't know when it's been a long time since I've been that dedicated and that focused and that willing to just push everything else away and make sure that happened. But so yeah, I think the upcoming things will be that, and then I have my band is putting out a record, and we have a live show for January 19. So I have, and these are songs that we've never played out before, and I've not figured out a rig for that. So now that I've figured out one rig, I have a whole nother rig to figure out, and a whole other and a whole other set list to learn.
Nice.
So that's what's coming up.
So songs for Winter Solstice. Tell us about that.
Okay, it's from about. I started it about 4 years ago, and it's what motivated me that's when I started getting some hardware sense again, and I bought the subsequent 37, and I knew at some point I would be doing something more than just goofing with it. I wanted to do some kind of instrumental record, and so I kept getting other things. So Brian, similar to you, look at the lineup there. It's a Mother 32, it's a DFAM. It's a subsequent 37. It's a grandmother. It was all the stuff that Moog was kind of coming out with 4 years ago and such. And so I threw together a record of what felt like to me very sort of wintry landscapes and very kind of cold and but somehow interesting and then hopeful towards the end as the light. I kind of made it a little bit of a concept record. Because as the days now start getting longer, I start talking about light, and I'm dealing with, the distant sun, but then I'm like talking about lighting candles and, celebrating the solstice in like a really old way. But I tried to capture that idea musically using all the synths. And then there's also piano, just acoustic piano sprinkled in and out. So, yeah.
Let me play a little bit of this here.
Oh, this was called Flurries. So I was trying to make it sound like, snow flurries.
Yeah, that's a really great way to do it there. Pause it.
That piano was excellent with that. That was cool.
Yeah, thanks.
I gotta say, this is one that's a little bit hard to preview because it's really something that envelops you and takes you in as you listen to it. So
slow. It's very slow to evolve, but that was the idea. I wanted it to be feel sort of frozen, like very slowly kind of. That was the idea anyway.
Yeah, I like that. And your Christmas card ones, I love those Christmas card ones. They're great.
Yeah, thank you.
In fact, if anybody's looking for any of anything that we've showed here on the show, any of these songs, in the description box, we have links to all 4 of our YouTube channels and some other stuff, and so you can find all of these there. Well, Brian, what you got going on next?
The next couple of weeks, I'm going to be laying low. I've got Christmas coming up, and it's going to be like a 2-phase thing. My my son and my dad will be here probably for Christmas, and then after Christmas, my daughter comes down from Chicago with my 2 grandsons, and they'll be here for about a week. So it'll be chaos in full-fledged. So I'm going to be pretty much tied up doing fun stuff until probably after New Year's. Beyond that, still learning more about the D. Got a few video concepts planned for showing off some of the features that I didn't know were in there. And we'll see where that takes us.
We'll be looking forward to those. I'll share maybe about a minute of the collaboration that we did, and hopefully give people a taste if they want to go check out the rest of it or one of your other videos.
Okay. Make sure you get your guitar solo in there. That was awesome.
Okay, we'll get a little bit of synth solo and a little bit of guitar solo here. All right, that was a fun one to do. And also, the streaming audio between this really sucks on live stream. So, check out the original yourself on each of the channels, and it'll sound even a lot better. For me, I got loaded up on bass guitars, and I really want to make some music as quickly as I can make the time to do it. So I'm planning to, do something with the short scale bass probably first. So, just that matter of time, isn't it? So, there's never enough of it. And I mean, just like you're saying, Tim, like I've got the mutable plats also. And it's like, man, I want to check out that new update and the FM and stuff on it. Like, that's down the list a little bit for me. So also I've got that Sir reactive load back there, and that's something that you can hook up to your guitar amps and run them straight into your computer and use IRs as your speaker cabinet. So got some IK Multimedia Tonex, which is this new like modeling type thing that you can take captures of your amps, a lot like the Kemper stuff. And so I'm looking forward to grabbing my Soldano or some of my top hats and seeing what I can do with them in the computer. But hopefully we'll get to that in the next few weeks. So anyways, thank you everybody for showing up, except for the spam bot there.
I see girls links. Yeah, we must be hitting big time, man. If we're getting.
Yeah, we got so many things that are blocked on that if you actually make it through, you've done pretty good. So, anyways, yeah, we don't condone any of that.
We can just change the name to Free Virus, because
yeah, there you go.
Anyways, we'll be back on next Wednesday talking about the wrap up in the year, what we've learned, and also where we want to go next in the future and our plans. So Thanks again to Brian for joining us. Just was
Yes.
heck of fun
Yeah,
to have
thanks,
you
Brian.
on and talk
Thanks for
and
being
nerd
on.
out about synthesizers. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll see everybody next week. Take care.